The rain was coming down in thick, slanting sheets when I turned onto our street. My flight had landed early, some miracle of tailwinds and cleared runways, and instead of calling her, I decided to surprise her. I could already picture the way her face would light up when she saw me walk through the door, the way she'd laugh and say, "You're home early." I parked behind a black sedan I didn't recognize, its windows fogged from the inside. A neighbor's visitor, probably. The air smelled like wet pavement and the faint tang of ozone, the kind of storm that made everything feel close and heavy. I grabbed my bag and jogged to the front door, my shoes splashing through shallow puddles. The house was quiet when I stepped inside, the only sound the steady drum of rain against the windows. I set my keys down softly, listening. No TV, no music. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant creak of the house settling. Then I saw it. The bedroom curtain was drawn. That was odd. She never closed it during the day. She loved the light. I stood there for a second, water dripping from my jacket onto the hardwood, and something cold curled in my stomach. The wine glasses caught the afternoon light at an odd angle, throwing prism reflections across the granite countertop. 2 stems, 2 bowls. One smudged with the berry-colored lipstick she'd worn yesterday. I remembered because she'd kissed my cheek at the airport, leaving that same waxy imprint. The other glass stood pristine, still beaded with condensation. I set my travel bag down too hard. The thump echoed through the unnaturally tidy kitchen. No breakfast dishes in the sink. No mail piled on the counter. Even the fruit bowl had been straightened, apples lined up like soldiers. My wife only cleaned like this when she was nervous. A sound, a gasp or a sigh, drifted down the hallway. The hairs on my neck stood up. I moved past the kitchen island, my dress shoes clicking on hardwood. Then I saw it. A navy sport coat draped over the back of the reading chair. Not mine. The fabric looked expensive, the kind of tailored wool I could never justify buying for myself. A faint scent clung to it, sandalwood and something else, something aggressively masculine. The hallway seemed to narrow as I approached. My fingers trailed along the wall for balance. The house smelled different today, her jasmine perfume undercut by sweat and sex and that damn cologne. My stomach churned. Another sound, a whisper, the wet click of a kiss. I should have turned around, should have walked out. But my body kept moving forward, pulled by some masochistic gravity. Our bedroom door stood slightly ajar. Golden light spilled through the gap, illuminating a single high-heeled shoe lying on its side in the hallway. The red sole screamed, Louboutin. She'd bought those for our anniversary, said they were only for special occasions. My palms were slick. I wiped them on my slacks, breathing through my mouth to avoid smelling that other man on my own bedsheets. The air felt thick, humid with betrayal. A moan, unmistakably hers. The same sound she made when... I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them, I noticed the carpet fibers were flattened in a path from the door, as if someone had paced there recently, waiting, listening. The bed creaked. A man's voice murmured something low and intimate. I didn't recognize the tone, but I knew the cadence, the rhythm of a lover, not a friend. My wedding ring caught the light as I raised my hand toward the door. The gold band felt suddenly heavy, like it might pull me through the floor. 3 years of marriage reduced to this moment, one push away from oblivion. The floorboard shrieked beneath me. Silence crashed down. Then sheets rustled. A zipper hissed. "Shit!" Her voice sharp with panic. "Did you hear that?" I stopped breathing. The doorknob turned. The doorknob stopped moving as soon as I stepped back, my shoulder hitting the hallway wall hard enough to make our wedding photo rattle in its frame. The sudden silence was worse than the whispers. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, so loud I was sure they could hear it too from inside the bedroom. Rain tapped against the windows like fingers drumming impatiently. The air smelled like her candle, vanilla, always vanilla, mixed with something sharper, something that didn't belong in our home. Through the inch-wide gap in the door, I saw the edge of our bed, the duvet half on the floor, and for one terrible second, a man's bare foot disappearing beneath the covers. I should have left then, should have turned around and walked out the front door, but my feet carried me closer instead, each step making the floorboards creak under my weight. The whispering started again, urgent and low, followed by the sound of someone scrambling to get dressed. When the door finally opened, it wasn't him I saw first. It was her, my wife, wearing my robe, her hair messy in a way I recognized immediately. Her face went pale when she saw me. "You're supposed to be in Chicago," she breathed, her fingers tightening around the robe's collar. Behind her, Daniel from her office sat up in our bed, his hair sticking up in all directions. He reached for his pants like that would somehow make this better. "Man, let me explain," he started, but I cut him off with just a look. The bedroom smelled like sex and her perfume. The clock on the nightstand read 2:17 p.m. My side of the bed was still perfectly made. These stupid details stuck in my head while my whole world cracked apart. "Were you ever going to tell me?" I asked, my voice strangely calm. She opened her mouth but didn't speak. That silence told me everything. Daniel cleared his throat like we were in some business meeting instead of the ruins of my marriage. I turned and walked away before either of them could say another word. Her bare feet pattered after me down the hall, but I was already out the door, slamming it hard enough to shake the walls. The last thing I heard was her calling my name as I walked into the rain, the cold water mixing with the hot tears on my face. The rain felt like needles against my skin as I stood in the driveway, car keys digging into my palm. I couldn't get in the car, couldn't drive, could barely breathe. Our neighbor's sprinklers kicked on across the street, the rhythmic hiss absurdly normal. A dog barked. Somewhere, a lawnmower droned. The world kept turning while mine had just shattered. I turned back to the house. The bedroom curtain twitched. She was watching, waiting to see if I'd come back. The front door remained closed. No footsteps running after me, no desperate apologies, just silence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once, twice. I didn't check it. Instead, I walked. Past the black sedan still parked behind my car. His car, I realized now. The windows had cleared, revealing empty coffee cups in the cup holders, a gym bag in the back seat. How many times had he parked here while I was away? How many mornings had this become part of her routine? The rain slowed to a drizzle as I reached the park at the end of our street. Our bench, the one where we'd eaten ice cream last summer, where she'd told me she might be ready to start trying for a baby, was slick with rainwater. I sat anyway. My hands shook as I scrolled through my phone. 3 missed calls, 5 texts, all from her. "Please come back so we can talk. It's not what you think. I can explain." The last one simply said, "I'm sorry." A jogger passed by, giving me a concerned look. I must have looked like a madman, soaking wet, sitting alone in the rain, laughing bitterly at my phone. The screen blurred as new messages appeared. Daniel left. "Please answer me. I love you." That last one burned worse than all the others. I typed 3 different responses and deleted them all. What could I say? What was left to say? Across the park, a couple walked hand in hand under a shared umbrella, their heads close together. I remembered us like that. When had we stopped being those people? My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a calendar notification. Date night, 7 p.m. time. I'd set the reminder yesterday morning, before my flight, before everything. The sky darkened as another storm rolled in. I stood up, water dripping from my clothes, and started walking. Not toward home, but away from it. The text kept coming, each vibration like a tiny electric shock against my thigh. I didn't look back. Not even when thunder cracked overhead, so loud it shook the ground beneath my feet. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I stumbled inside, the bell above the door jingling like some cruel parody of normalcy. I ordered black coffee just to have something to hold. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The barista gave me a towel for my hair. "Rough day?" she asked. I almost laughed. "You could say that." My phone had finally stopped buzzing. Either she'd given up, or the battery died. I didn't check. The coffee burned my tongue, but I welcomed the pain. Something real to focus on besides the images flashing behind my eyes. Across the street, a movie theater marquee advertised a romantic comedy. We'd seen the trailer last week. She'd rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "We should see that." Now the letters blurred together through the rain-streaked window. I pulled out my wallet. Behind my credit card, tucked in the hidden slot, was the photo booth strip from our first anniversary. 4 frames of us making ridiculous faces, her nose scrunched in that way I loved. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. Can I sit? Her voice cracked. I stared at my coffee. The silence stretched until she pulled out the chair anyway. Up close, I could see the smudged mascara, the way she kept twisting her wedding ring around her finger, the same nervous habit she'd had since our honeymoon. I didn't plan this, she started. The laugh burst out of me, harsh and sudden. Several customers turned to stare. Right, I said. He just accidentally ended up in our bed. She flinched. It's been going on for 3 months. The number hit like a punch. 3 months of lies. 3 months of working late and girls' nights out. 3 months of me being oblivious. The barista approached with a hesitant smile. Can I get you anything? Nothing for me, I said, standing abruptly. My chair screeched against the tile. She grabbed my wrist. Please, just talk to me. I looked down at her hand, the same hand that had held mine through job losses, through my father's funeral, through midnight fears about becoming parents. Now it felt like a stranger's touch. I need to walk, I said. Then I'll walk with you. I shook my head. Not this time. The rain had stopped when I stepped outside, leaving the world washed clean. I didn't look back as I turned left instead of right, away from our street, away from our life. My phone buzzed one last time in my pocket. I kept walking. I walked until my shoes rubbed blisters on my heels, until the streetlights flickered on one by one, like distant witnesses to my collapse. The city smelled of wet pavement and fried food from a late-night diner. My stomach growled, but the thought of eating made me nauseous. At a bus stop, I finally checked my phone. 17 missed calls, 23 texts. The last one read, "I'll sleep on the couch. Please come home." Home. The word felt hollow now. I scrolled up through her messages, pleading, justifying, backtracking. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. I was lonely when you traveled. Each excuse carved another piece out of me. The bus arrived with a hydraulic sigh. I boarded without checking the destination, dropping into a plastic seat that still held the day's warmth. Through rain-streaked windows, the city passed in a blur of neon and shadow. My phone buzzed again. Not her this time. My brother. You okay? Followed by, she called me. Of course she had. Damage control. I could picture her tearful voice explaining, minimizing, it was just one time, a lie. We've been having problems. True, but not like this. The bus lurched to a stop near the riverfront. I got off, drawn to the dark water shimmering with reflected lights. The railing felt cold and solid under my hands. Somewhere downstream, our favorite restaurant sat overlooking this same river, the place where I'd proposed during a summer thunderstorm. A notification popped up, a shared photo memory from 2 years ago today. Us grinning under a beach umbrella, her hair salt-tangled, my nose peeling from sunburn. I swiped it away, but not fast enough to miss the caption. Best day ever. The river murmured below. A couple walked by, their laughter sharp in the night air. I gripped the railing tighter, the metal biting into my palms. When my phone rang again, I almost threw it into the water. Instead, I answered. Where are you? Her voice sounded raw. I watched a barge move slowly upstream. Does it matter? Yes. A pause. I'm scared. The admission hung between us. I'd never heard her sound so small. You should be, I said quietly. Silence. Then a muffled sob. Just tell me you're safe. The barge disappeared around a bend. I thought of our bed, the couch where she waited, the life we'd built together now reduced to this fragile thread of a phone call. I'm safe, I lied, and ended the call. The night air smelled of diesel and damp earth. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew, long and lonesome, like a warning. I turned away from the water and kept walking, my shadow stretching thin under the streetlights before disappearing altogether. The key stuck in the lock the way it always did when it rained. I turned it harder than necessary, the metallic screech echoing through our quiet street. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner and the Chinese takeout she must have ordered. Empty containers sat neatly stacked on the coffee table, 2 sets of chopsticks. Had Daniel come back? My hands curled into fists before I noticed the second pair was still wrapped in paper. She wasn't on the couch. Our bedroom door stood slightly open, light spilling into the hallway. I moved silently, years of marriage making me an expert in which floorboards to avoid. She sat cross-legged on the bed, still wearing my jacket, staring at her phone. When she looked up, her face was blotchy from crying. "I changed the sheets," she said quietly. The mundane details shattered me. I looked at our bed, the same one we'd picked out together, the one we'd argued about because she wanted firmer mattresses and I liked soft, the compromise bed. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. Outside, a car alarm wailed, then abruptly cut off. The sudden silence felt heavier than the noise. I studied her face, the faint scar above her eyebrow from a childhood accident, the way her left eyelid drooped slightly when she was tired. The woman I knew better than anyone who suddenly felt like a stranger. "Maybe we're not supposed to," I said. Her breath hitched. The house settled around us, full of ghosts of who we used to be. I turned toward the living room. "I'll take the couch tonight." Neither of us moved. The clock ticked 3 times before she nodded. Tomorrow would come. Decisions would be made. But for now we stood suspended in the wreckage. 2 people who knew every inch of each other's hearts and still couldn't bridge this new, impossible distance. Dawn light crept through the blinds, painting stripes across the untouched couch. I hadn't slept. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked through the longest night of my life. The smell of coffee pulled me into the kitchen. She stood at the counter in yesterday's clothes, stirring a mug with mechanical precision. 2 breakfast plates sat untouched on the table. "You made eggs," I said. She didn't turn around. "You always eat after a bad night." The familiarity of the gesture stung worse than anger would have. I stared at the perfect yolks, the toast cut diagonally the way I liked. Last week this would have been love. Today it felt like a hostage negotiation. Her phone buzzed on the counter. We both looked at it. "Daniel?" I asked. She shook her head. "My mom." The screen lit up with notifications. "Everyone knows." I took the coffee she offered. Our fingers didn't touch. The backyard looked different in this light, the overgrown hydrangeas she'd meant to prune, the patio stones we'd laid together last spring. A life in full color, suddenly muted. "I called a therapist," she said. "They can see us Thursday." The word "us" hung between us like a question. I set down the mug. "I need to stay at Mark's for a while." Her breath caught, but she nodded. The eggs grew cold on the table. When I carried my suitcase to the door, she didn't follow. The house smelled like coffee and regret as I turned the knob. "Will you text me?" she asked to my back. I paused on the threshold. The morning sun warmed my face. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed. "Yeah," I said. Neither of us said goodbye. The door clicked shut behind me, softer than I expected, like the sound of a book closing on a story you never got to finish.